Kristen, thanks for doing this. This is going to be so much fun. Everybody, you haven't met Kristen yet. She is our social media manager here at Team CBR. And we're going to have a conversation about some of the main points that come into us. People want to know stuff. And we thought, you know what, let's just have a conversation instead of writing about it.
Yeah, I'm excited because I see this question a lot. The question would be, how do you start your spiritual journey?
Ooh, that's a loaded question.
It is.
It is, isn't it? Oh, and you and I have talked about this before. So I want to say the spiritual journey is something that in our culture, in Western culture, we've been devoid of it in a way. You know, it hasn't been something that has been as supported as being part of our daily lives. We've had a separation, you know, since, I don't know, hundreds of years of church and state. So spirit is over there, materialism is here, and we have really revered intellect and the logical mind, production, you know, like how productive are we, competitiveness, the kind of consumer society where go, make, all this kind of stuff. And we've kind of forgotten, and we're really seeing the evidence of it now. We are totally, that there is a mystical quality to life that is calling us from the inside out. Right? And so I think it's when each one of us comes to it for different reasons, I would say. So, and I think it's when we hit some kind of a bottom. It's kind of like an elevator, which stops at every floor. So somebody may find their bottom to be, there's more to life. I'm not really feeling it. I have everything I want. And it's still, there's something missing. I need to turn to something spiritual, right? So typically we notice a big younger audience that goes running to yoga, right? For example, that's going to be it, or whatever it is, right? And then you have this construct of what spirituality is supposed to look like. But it's more than that. It's much more than that, because that's only one tiny little thing about, you know, how do we make a connection to that relationship that we have to the divine in all its forms. And for me, my bottom was drugs and alcohol. You know, so for me, I had to go to the bottom floor, and I'm sure other people have gotten even further in different basements than mine. But I turned to my spirituality when the way I was living, which was so destructive. For me, it was, I say that I took the express train to hell in order to get back up to, you know, to find my spirit. Through drugs and alcohol, and my life was unmanageable. But we can experience unmanageability in so many areas without ever having drugs and alcohol as part of our story. That just happened to be mine, you know, and I almost had to die. But we died different deaths now, like the feeling that, you know, the way we hurt ourselves can come in so many different forms, in relationships and choices that we make that don't feed our spirits at all. So it's really, I think, coming back to that holistic experience of being a human being. Our humanity needs the mystical quality to it. Our very humanity needs spirit as part of our conversation. So, and again, this is just my opinion, but the people who come to our communities, you run the communities, you know they're coming because there's some woo-woo there, right? There is going to be that mystical quality and mystical element that we are searching for conversation around, you know, and how do we make it practical? How do we make it real for us? Where it's not necessarily going to come from a tradition, you know, the traditional church, et cetera, which I love, by the way. I would have been a minister. I wanted to be an interfaith minister because there's something in common. Every single culture around the world has created a conversation around spirit for a reason. We have to have it. So I think now our modern world has gotten so chaotic, uncertain. We have an uncertain relationship even to nature now. Even that is a spiritual relationship, that when we start to see and acknowledge spirit in all things, it completely changes our perspective on life and on each other, because we're inviting the sacred back into life. And I think that's the core piece of how do you start your spiritual journey, is to, first of all, start, right? And what is the start? It means to radically take a look with rigorous honesty, your life and what's missing in it. And then the other one is, where am I treating myself and others as sacred beings? Where is my deep respect for others, for nature, for animals, for the environment, for whatever it is, right? So we can just name it. Where do I put money, for example, as my higher power? Like, what is my higher power? What does it look like? So it's not about judgment. It's more about doing an inventory. Find out where the rotten bananas are.
Yeah, it's like spring cleaning, but it's spiritual spring cleaning.
Yeah, and determine like which part of my life, like what leads me, what's my motive. So if your big motive is just to make money, just that's all your motive is, you're going to be missing some other good qualities of your life, because everything that you do you're going to have blinders on, because it's all about getting something, as opposed to contribution comes with a much more spiritual kind of concept around it. I am here in service. So what's my contribution? It's a very different way of looking at things. Not to say that I don't want to say that making money isn't spiritual, because it can be deeply spiritual. But I'm just talking about the drivers we have in our society that hasn't worked for people, and that isn't working for a lot of people. And that's why people are they're showing up in our community going, okay, I have this life and there's something missing.
But I think too, when there is something missing, you can't just dive into this, from what I'm understanding. You can't just go in and not do inventory in the past. You have to look at what you've allowed in your life, how to be treated, the kind of work, the kind of jobs. Are you ready to forgive people? Are you ready to forgive yourself?
Oh, let's talk about forgiveness, because that's a core piece. I think that first we look at the inventory, then we look at ourselves with true eyes, then we have to, at some point, we have to recognize that we're carrying a burden. We're carrying a big story about ourselves. And that means we might have been carrying ancestral trauma. We might have been carrying all the different stories about the way we should see the world based on our parents, their parents, their parents. Like, it's a lot. And how we're conditioned. So first, being willing to love yourself in all your flawsomeness, right? And realizing, one of the people who helped me the most in my early recovery, because I'm sober now 35 plus years, and woo woot. And of course, it's been one big, long spiritual journey, and it's been about peeling the onion skin. And I remember there's a minister named Matthew Fox, and he's written a lot of books, and he has a book called Original Blessing. And he talks about the fact that every human being is born blessed, not born in sin, which is to miss the mark. That's what it means. So if you change that mindset, because many of us have that drilled into us, that at our core, we are flawed in such a way that is so deeply flawed. And what his view is no, if you are here as an emissary of the divine, which means you are here, you were made by somebody. It's like the idea that the universe had an idea and it was perfect and it was you. Right, that he turned it on its head, and that was so helpful for me in the very beginning. And he redid the whole Sermon on the Mount, and it's what I needed when I first got clean and sober. And those are the kind of authors that I read and people that I studied, because I wanted also what I found in church when I was a kid, which was a sense of mystical numinousness, like, ooh, there's something, right? And you want that feeling. But you want it in your everyday, not just when you go to a building to do that. You want to implement it every day. And that's what the spiritual journey is all about, is about welcoming that concept into your life and recognizing that you need to take away what doesn't work and face the parts of yourself. And that's why I believe that the spiritual journey requires shadow work, requires looking at the parts of yourself that you want to disown.
So I have a question about that. How do you forgive yourself? How do you do that?
I can only tell you my personal experience and doing the work that I do for others, right? I don't believe it's an instantaneous thing. And I think that we also kind of live in this instant gratification world. Like, it's one of the reasons why my school takes 8 months to go through. You have to have an experience. So you don't get to go in for 6 weeks. You go in for 8 solid months if you really want to see stuff really work. It's that people are coming and going, I want an instant feeling. Now, I did feel an instant sense that I was looked after. But for me to forgive myself, I'll be honest with you, it took a lot of time, but it took a willingness on my part to trust that God didn't make junk. And I didn't do it alone. I belong to groups that have nothing to do with my business or my career. I belong to spiritual groups that I go to and talk to other women. And, I do, for me, I pray and I meditate and I do all these different things on a daily basis that keep me connected to my higher power. And I have to be reminded that my primary relationship is with my higher power. And so when that's first, it's easier to forgive yourself. When you're just left to your own devices in your head and you're just left with your ego self that has a list of issues, okay? I have a whole list of things that I wish I'd done, right? So first things first, you have to develop a trust and a faith in something greater than you. Right? And there's certainly been lots and lots of evidence. And you can find millions of books and spiritual paths that have been set before us. I always say, pick one. All paths lead to Rome. Just go pick one. Pick one that you like. And then I'm like, go devote yourself to that relationship first. Then I found that became easier. I started seeing miracles. And then I could start to forgive myself because self-forgiveness didn't happen immediately. What did happen first was I could forgive others.
I was going to ask because it sounds like once you get you taken care of, or at least start, right? It's like you said earlier, you have to just start and take that initiative. So when you start that process and you're realizing, all right, listen, I'm letting go of old stories, I'm forgiving myself, or I'm working towards that. A lot of the times when we're in that process, at least for me, I found halfway through working on me that there's a lot of people that I needed to really just forgive, even though, and not expect anything in return.
Right. This is so true, right? It's about not expecting anything in return. That was a crucial piece that you just said. So you're right. Halfway through, you realize, in order for me to feel liberated from these things, I needed to be first accountable. Like you have to actually really see yourself with clarity and not with judgment. That's the idea is first thing first, I have a relationship to a power greater than me. And then I can ask that being or beingness, and for me it's a consciousness. It's not an old man white guy in the sky that I learned about when I was a kid. For me it's a conscious universe that loves me and that loves everybody and that is creative. It can be destructive depending on how I focus on it, right? Because I need sometimes a good house cleaning that I may not do by myself. So the idea is that I'm now accountable for my life, right? If I'm accountable, then that means I might have to make amends. That means I have to know what is mine to work through or what is somebody else's projection. That takes time. But the willingness, like you said, putting the time in, to putting the time in and loving life just for life. Being grateful for the tiniest thing. Then I was able to start, okay, well, I don't want to be carrying the burden of being angry at that person over there for just expressing themselves or doing whatever. I don't want that burden because I'm drinking poison expecting them to get sick. Right?
Sometimes you have to remember, sometimes someone is not on the same path as you. And it's really interesting and important to think about it's okay to outgrow self, but it's also okay to outgrow those who you used to be, friends, family. It doesn't matter if it no longer serves you or the highest good. It's okay to outgrow that.
Yeah, and you brought something up that we've noticed a lot in our communities. They talk about that, like I feel left out, my whole family doesn't understand me, blah, blah, blah. That's a big one that we see a lot on our pages. And it's scary because it's like, oh my gosh, I've now developed this relationship. I see the world through a different lens because that comes organically. The minute you start to put your higher power first, put a sense of goodness, even if it's good, orderly direction. Maybe it's not God, because that could really screw people up. Like for some people who have issues around that word, I'm like, okay, whatever. Make it good, orderly direction. Make it just good things, goodness. And then everything changes, and then you start realizing, oh, wait a sec. Okay, I can't be with these gossipy people anymore. I can no longer be with people who only want to be angry at the world. I can't be with these, or make whatever it is, whatever the list is. I'm just making it up as I go along.
It's so funny too, because when you were talking about that and being grateful and connecting and it just being comfortable, with being uncomfortable, number one, but number two, connecting with that higher power and connecting with whatever you want to call it. I personally know that meditation helped me, and I was terrible.
Yeah, meditation was the key. Was actually that key in the wheel, or the lynch. Is it called linchpin, right? Which was what everything came together when I learned how to meditate. To be quite honest, what worked for me was guided meditations. Helped me most. If I could listen to something, it didn't matter that I couldn't listen to my thoughts. I'm also a big supporter of mindfulness meditation. So there's different ways that you could learn meditation. And really, I always say, again, all paths lead to Rome. Maybe it's not Rome, but all paths lead to spirituality. Pick the one that, I mean, not all paths, but you know what I'm saying. The spiritual path that appeals to you most, the one that you feel connected to, pick that, because there's so many different ways to learn how to meditate. I just felt as a beginner that I could not sit still. I could not just listen to my breathing. I just wanted to jump out of my skin. So for some people, and it's hard to concentrate. So for me, guided meditations, the very first one I ever heard was on a cassette tape, and it was by Shakti Gawain. She wrote a book called Creative Visualization. Now we're going back into the 80s, 1980s, right? Okay, so I'm like dating myself. I don't know if you were born yet. But anyway, that was the most amazing experience where I could actually hear this person's voice and I could follow along. And at the end of it, I felt like $1,000,000. I have to say, though, I mix prayer and meditation together. So I will ask to be connected and relieved. My favorite prayer is relieve me of the bondage of self, right? And I talk about the small self, right? When the ego mind. And I'm not against an ego because we need it to be a unique identity, but that mind that is competitive and ambitious and gossipy and sees lack in the world and doesn't know God, that wants to ease God out, or it's either going to edge God out or ease God's order, right? So for me, I say, take this away from me, the bondage that I have to this part of me, and fill me with light, fill me with love, fill me with compassion for myself and others. Because typically, and for me, because when I got clean and sober, you got to know an addict does a lot of things, gets involved in a lot of things that a normal person doesn't. Let's be honest, right? Violence happened to me, all kinds of stuff happened to me. So I had a lot of shame. And I do think that shame can come in all forms. You don't have to go as far. Like I said, I took the elevator to the basement. You can get off on the second floor. Right? So, but I think we all have this sense of that we're not enough, that we aren't good enough, that we're unworthy. And I think that you don't need to have been an addict at all to feel like that, that we aren't.
100%.
Right?
That I really have. Prayer and meditation worked for you. Journaling and meditation worked for me. I had to get what was here in my, all of it. I just kind of words on paper.
I was going to say, and journaling. I have journaled every single day since January. I can tell you January 6, 1986 was the day that I went into a women's treatment center for alcohol addiction and drugs. Yep. And I have journaled pretty much every day since then. I miss the odd one when I'm super busy, but I know that when I journal, even if it's just little scribbles, I doodle, scribble, and talk about what's going on for me. Like, I'm telling you, that is like, it's all there and I can see it, as opposed to the machinations in the head, which is the ego, right? You ever have these arguments in your head with people that don't know you're talking to them? Well, that's the average life. I think people think the spiritual journey is devoid of your average life. No, we have to have we don't have to have that. I like that to be much less. Thank you very much. And when I'm focused on spirit and compassion, I'm not having those conversations in my head. I'm not also trying to create a story that can make myself feel better that's not the truth or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like I can see myself right-sized, and that's okay.
How can a beginner use journaling to guide them in their spiritual journey?
I just write a page. Here's how I started. Hi, it's me. Sometimes that's what I say. Hi, it's me. Like, dear God, it's me. I'm really pissed off right now, and I just realized by writing that geez, that's not helping me at all, is it? Like that sometimes it's what I write, or I'll write a poem, or I'll write an actual inventory when I realize I'm really triggered by something, and I'll find out where it came from. And I realize half the time, oh, this has nothing to do with what's really going on right now. I haven't healed this. So it's a lifetime thing. A spiritual journey is a journey once you begin it, you're in it. And it's also one of the reasons it's called the road less traveled and not easy street, is because you have to self-reflect, because you have to make amends, because you have to self-identify, and also, I guess, be willing to change the things that don't work for you and that could hurt other people too. And that takes time.
And it's tough. It's not easy, because we've touched on meditation, helpful, forgiveness, very tough thing to do, to forgive and not expect that, apology in return. You have to let go, journaling. And so it's like you have to enter this as open as you can possibly be with an open mindset, right?
I think you're right when you say about the open mind, the mindset of openness and curiosity, because it can be, you have to be very careful. Just left to your own devices, you can be very self-judgment. Judgment is something that's not helpful. It's really more about, let me discover what in me, needs to heal. How can I get closer to source, to the universe, to what is best for everybody? Because we are not raised to think about what's best for everybody. Like the selflessness can come with a caveat. Sometimes our selflessness has an agenda, like the codependency, or the healers that just want to heal so they can avoid themselves.
People pleasers.
Yeah, oh my God, I'm a recovering people pleaser. If I could tell you how many problems I've got myself into because of a people pleasing, you can ask my husband. There's also, the other thing is that it's not about perfection, because there's certain traits that come from those negative traits, or those traits that are unhealthy, that can also bloom and be something that's valuable and good. So once you've healed the people pleasing, you realize that you can set healthy boundaries, and you can still be there for other people without losing yourself. Right? And giving the burden of that to someone else, and then having an expectation that they should be a certain way. Like, I think the biggest thing on a spiritual path is recognizing you learn to manage your expectations.
I feel like I'm in a spiritual church right now, because everything that you're saying, I've been through. I was more hard on myself than anyone else in my life. Any outer experience, any outer person, I was my worst enemy.
Yeah, the self-critic, I'm not enough, I'm not perfect enough, I'm not the right this, I'm not the right that. And we live in a society that has so many isms, which I call inner shit maintained ism, right? So, name any ism, and that's inner shit maintained, right? Which is, it's like, it's the unfortunate truth of our global society that we know is part of the global transformation, the great transformation. You look at how many people are coming in droves to our pages, and we're so niche, as you know, right? You work for me, right? So like we're this little niche, but people are finding us, and they're saying like, I'm in this transformation. I don't know what to do, where to go, where to look. And we're like, okay, this is the way we do it. Like, we use oracle cards, we use divination as a method of self-reflection, etc. We do these like very specific things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think if we really want to belong, because it's really about not belonging too. We feel like we don't belong anywhere. It's where spirit is our primary relationship. And when that is true, like, I know all my troubles are so small comparatively, right? And I think all of us are being invited into that right now. So the spiritual journey, how do you journal? Just write anything. Hi, it's me. Start there, right? Like, here's how I feel today. Here's why I feel like that. Here's the part of self that I think it's affecting. Geez, is this about being self-centered? What about the other person? Maybe, like, you don't know what other people are going through. You don't know. You can't, unless you have walked in another person's shoes, you have no clue what really is happening there. You only see the evidence of whatever is going on. And so it brings us back to ourselves, and not so much on looking at how the outer world is telling us whether we're okay or not. That's a whole other thing. So when we are on a spiritual path, we recognize it's an inside job, and it's about how we respond to what's going on in our outer world, and it's never going to be perfect. And I think that's the thing. We just have to show up for it and do the best we can, and then keep being accountable and keep doing it. And yeah, it's like peeling an onion. But you want to know what I think is the hardest thing for people?
Before you say it, because you might be on point, for me, it's about being positive to myself, because what I used to do, oh, for real? Were you guys? How funny. It's about talking about myself in a positive way, because you just said, that outer, it's influence.
Yep.
When I used to journal, I used to just like write down all this negative, and then that would be it. And then that didn't really help.
No, that's good. But well, I love that you said that, because that, as we know, we have something called the dumping grounds. We actually have journals where we dump all the stuff down in one journal, and then we put all the good stuff in the other one. So we figured this out in the Oracle School, for example. You start to recognize, oh, wait, that's garbage that needs to be taken out. What are the pearls I could find from that? So there's some really interesting ways to be able to use your journal, still have a journal where you vomit in it. And then you go, okay, so what am I getting out of this? How else could I see this? What other perception? And it does take time, and it does take the wherewithal and the curiosity to give yourself the gift of that. But so yes, being positive for yourself, but joy is one of the hardest things for people to accept in their lives. Because we're so indoctrinated and conditioned now to expect the worst, to see the world as an unsafe place, to see that because there's so much uncertainty right now, people are afraid to allow themselves to have joy. And what a spiritual path allows us to do is both and. It enables us to do the work, but it's not all about shadow and looking at how do we have to change our broken selves, because I don't believe anybody is broken. I don't. No one is broken. No. No. We are not broken. What we are is in a constant state of transition and change and evolution and needing of healing. I would say that maybe we have been wounded, but wounds can heal. It's not about putting Humpty Dumpty back together again. This isn't like that. It's really about, our humanity is buried under so much crust. And allowing ourselves and others to have that. So to recognize that we are also allowed joy and celebration and love and laughter. And that, I think, has really been dampened a lot by our current conditions specifically. So on the spiritual path, like one of the funniest things I've ever done was go to a laughing yoga class. Okay? Laughing yoga. I am not kidding you. I have never snorted so much and laughed. I have never, oh my gosh, you can look them up online. I don't know if they have them on Zoom or anything like that, but yeah, because I was so serious. And that's the other thing. You notice these very serious people on the spiritual path. And I'm like, no, you need humor. 100,000%. So how do you start your spiritual journey? Go get your humor out of your purse. Bring your sense of humor to the table, because this is not a precious thing. This is not because there's a spiritual materialism too, that this sense of that it has to be so good and so pretty and so pure. Don't even start me out on the love and light stuff. Although love and light, I just mean that as a whole thing, because then that's like whole bypassing thing. But that's not what we're talking about. The thing is that, we can laugh at our humanity. Because we're ridiculous. I think part of the spiritual path is recognizing how ridiculous we all are. So what can we do? How do we make the best of it? In spite of all the stuff, how do we keep our dignity and let other people have theirs too?
All right. So I have something that I want to ask you, because we've touched on a lot of things that I've personally resonated with. You have been saying throughout this whole process that You know, when you are meditating, do the thing that calls out to you. When you are journaling, journal however the heck you want to journal. Do what calls out to you. And I know that you also say that when you were teaching us about oracle cards. So how can oracle cards help us with all of
With the
this on our
spiritual.
spiritual journey?
Yeah, so first I got to tell you how I first came to it. So I had a relationship to cards since I was a kid. My Scottish nanny, Mrs. Kelly, oh my God, she would, so as my parents would go out, and she was our babysitter, right? She would come and all her little friends would come over and she would read playing cards at the table and she'd be doing their readings at my mom's house. I was like 6 or 7, right? And then as I got older, I got my hands on a tarot deck. So when I was 17, and then it was still very woo and occult and, mystical. But I have to tell you, where did spirituality and psychology come together on it? I got clean and sober 1986, so January 2nd, 1986. In that year, I had a therapist. So, because I did everything I could to straighten my head up, right? So, and unusually, I had a therapist that used a tarot deck. So she was a psychotherapist that used, it was called the Handel Tarot. I will never forget that. I'm like, you're doing cards? I'm in therapy. It was so profound. So early on, 35 years ago, I knew to relate. And she was very spiritual, and we talked about Carl Jung and as you know, the Swiss psychologist, and she talked about, how to have develop a spiritual life and recognize that my dreams, because I had a lot of dreams, stuff would show me things that I was going through, because she was a Jungian therapist and she used oracle cards, tarot cards, because there were no oracle cards back then that I know of. Anyway, so then, oh no, Jamie Sam's animal cards were out there back then. There were a few, anyhow, because I'm dating myself here. So I recognized that those cards could help me track myself. I could track myself on my spiritual progress. So before I did readings professionally, I was using those cards to track my progress. Because A, they were mystical. B, I was, I had a really profound spiritual awakening. And I figured, well, I could use these as a tool. So before I started doing readings professionally for 2 years, because I was so into I'm not going to talk to dead people or all that stuff, right? I was like, no, I just wanted to be normal. Whatever that means. But that's obviously not normal anyway. But I really recognized that these spoke to my spiritual awakening, and they kept me on track, and they showed me when I was lying to myself. They always showed me when I was off track, and I was like, oh, wow, I don't like these things, right? So, no, I would throw them away, and then I would redo them, and they would basically show up the same way. I would put the cards back, and I would, if I didn't like them, and I'd be, but I didn't look at them as predictive tools when I first started using them. It was always about what was going on with me. So then because I did learn them, that they were predictive and they were woo-woo and they were all that stuff and they were occult and, but then I learned the mystical, spiritual side of this. So I early on, 35 years ago, before I ever ended up an author or the ability to make oracle cards or anything like that, I was using them as part of my spiritual program. That was part of it, integrated right into it 35 years ago. So that's why it's not a stretch for me to when I decided to create the content a few years ago, when I decided to create my legacy, which is Oracle School and all the different other things that we're doing right now, I realized, I said, I want to create an experience for people where I could start, and even these videos, anything, to recognize that working with oracles is a personal transformation tool. Right? That divination is finding the divine within you.
And the spiritual journey is the personal transformation journey.
It is, because you can't help it. You're going to change. Don't sign up for a spiritual path unless you're prepared to change. Don't sign up for a spiritual path unless you're prepared to feel shitty sometimes. Right? You are going to suffer a little bit because you have to let go your old ideas about life. And that means you end up letting go people. You might recognize that you've made poor choices and you need to change them. And so there is some soul searching that hurts. It does hurt.
I know when I first got started and I started to use oracle cards, I wasn't sure if I was trusting myself, that I was interpreting them correctly.
That's a good point that you just brought up about whether you are interpreting them correctly, hence why there are guidebooks. Why I write the guidebook. Like, I can only talk about my card decks because sometimes I get a card deck and I'm like, I don't understand, what are they trying to say with this? Do I have to interpret it myself, or is this it? So that's one of the reasons I write the guidebooks, that I write the specific way I write them. So for people to be able to say, oh, that one sentence in this, that really spoke to me. So that you learn to trust your intuition over time as you exercise it. And that's a key component of the spiritual path, because your intuition is your innate communication ability to speak to the universe and listen to the universe. It's like you already have it inside you. It's already loaded up in the program, right? You came with that software.
Funny, you know what's so funny? This is gonna be okay. Well, I use this a lot, and it's your thing. You have, and I take this sometimes if I feel like I'm just kind of downing myself, because I get that way sometimes still, and I've been on this journey for years. But I take your quiz as many times, like how intuitive are you at reading oracles? I kid you not, I do.
Yeah, well, and I've even used it too sometimes. So it's like, I know we make stuff. I make things that I want to use. As you know, I make them because I want to use them. Or because that would be really cool to have one of those things, and so we do them. Yeah, that's cool that you use that, because other people can use that quiz too that way, which is good that we could talk about that. Well, this is a fun conversation. We're going to do this again. Everybody, this is Kristen. I get to work with her every single day. She is a fantastic asset to the Colette Baron-Reid team. We love her so much, and it's so great to share the journey with you, Kristen.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here every single day. You know, I've been on an interesting spiritual journey myself, and I saw the community asking nonstop, and I was like, okay, I use her quiz, but I don't know, I want to hear from her about what her journey was.
And I love it too, that we're going to find out more things from the community, and we're going to do more, because it's more fun to talk than it is to just always constantly be writing newsletters about it. And yeah, it's fun. And we can do this. Thank you, Kristen. Take care. Bye. Mwah. See you later. Bye.